At 84 years old, you can't get a better day.
Welcome back to BarryTsGarage. We've got another great episode for you. Some wonderful questions for you, Ed, and I've got Ed Smith right here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, what a good day.
It's a great day, Ed, and I thank you for making yourself available again to answer these questions.
Yeah, we'd like doing this.
Why don't you tell me a little bit about that trip you took last week?
Last Wednesday, me and a friend of mine and two of them decided to go to California. And we had a little business to go on. There's 3 plots, so we had some business to take care of a little bit. And so we got in a truck early in the morning and went up to northern LA to H&H Flatheads. We got there, and it was surprisingly what we encountered. It was good, and he met us on the driveway, and what a nice guy he was, and we had a good time. Some of the things he showed us all around the shop and welcomed us, and we learned some things, asked him some questions.
Did you see anything you hadn't seen before?
Not too much.
Okay.
It surprised me, he had so many of the V12 Lincoln motors he had.
Oh, Lincoln V12.
He had some new heads there he just got done.
Okay.
The castings was really interesting. He showed us in his machine shop where he works and everything else, and we did our business, and we took us a couple of motors up there to have them sealed, Flatheads to have them sealed from the inside.
Oh, okay.
That's what we did, yeah. And something else, a couple of little things. And
yeah.
So we really had a good time there, and we went on down, and then we went down into Long Beach, Don Ferguson's place.
Yes.
With Land Speed record and Land Speed. So we went there and found the shop, and it wasn't too hard to find, but it was interesting there. Went inside the shop, and the things that I seen there was amazing. It was like being in a candy store with expensive, and he had some aluminum flathead motors. He had one aluminum small block Chevy motor with Chevy V8 motor, like a 350 block aluminum with Arden heads on it.
Oh my goodness.
And an intake manifold and carburetor there. He had a lot of blown injected stuff there, Chrysler motors and different things, and some of the stuff he showed us around there, and then we went to lunch.
Okay.
So he says, come on, let's go to lunch. So Mr. Ferguson, so we got in the car and went down to lunch on the Mexican food place there real quick, and the things that we were worth there, the guy sat beside me, I asked him, who are you? He said he was Art Crispin's brother.
Okay.
And the other old guy there, he was the driver.
Okay.
And it was Mickey Thompson's son, Danny Thompson.
No kidding.
And then Mr. Ferguson we had there, so couldn't get anybody better to go to lunch.
Wow.
So, and Steve was with us and another guy there, so we had a good time there. Then we went back to another building and looked at this Land Speed record, the car that they've been working on. They were going to start up there, and they showed us a lot of Mr. Ferguson's stuff, and we had a good time there. They were so friendly, and we got some pictures taken, and we really had a good time there.
Excellent.
So that was in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And then we hurried up and went over to Anaheim to Jimmy Shine's.
Jimmy Shine.
Speed shop, yes. And we had a good welcome there, and everything was fine. He even had a little candy bar there, the snack. And he showed us around the shop some of the cars he was working on, and we got back home really late that day. But what a good day. It was really a good day. The best one of my days in hot rodding business, and the 3 things you shop. So I learned a lot.
That is excellent.
And we did business a little bit with each one of the shops.
Sure. Yeah, you had a reason to be there.
Yeah,
but
we had a reason to be there.
Also had a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. It was an excellent day. At 84 years old, you can't get a better day.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah, it was really done.
So
what kind of questions we have today?
All right.
We have something.
We do. We have a nice, good, random assortment of your questions. And the first one's from Andy. And he said, I'm helping a friend assemble a Ford 302, and the number 3 upper main bearing fits in the block loose compared to all the other shells in the blocks and caps. They all fit snug as they should. Do you think the machine shop screwed up the line honing, or what? Why would it be so loose?
The first thing I always do is try another bearing in that.
Okay.
Yeah, because they're all the same size.
But
sometimes I would try another bearing in that block thing, because they should snap in a little bit snug. And not, to be really snug or not. But if it snaps in, the other one snaps in there, the block's okay.
Right.
And you probably, without a doubt, the bearing's damaged in the box and freight.
Okay.
The bearing itself has been crushed a little bit. Who knows what somebody dropped it or something in production, packaging or something. If you try another bearing shell in that block, it snaps in like it's supposed to be. Again, they're supposed to snap in a little bit, not really that much. Who knows what the damage is? You get a bearing that could be spread out wider.
Right.
Let alone crushed together.
So what's the likelihood, going back to his question about honing, is it
probably not.
okay?
If somebody lined it or something like they can't hardly get that one bigger than the other 4.
Yeah, it wouldn't.
So-
Like you've shown me your line boring a little bit, and it seems like the first one in the line would be the most likely to mess up, wouldn't
Yeah,
it?
that's right. The ends.
Yeah.
Either ends, yeah.
Yeah.
Because
So
when our line on the whole line, we used to line bore a motor, and you could easily get that off because you put a machine in and line distance, and then when you line boring, the block can get hotter,
Oh,
and your
right.
bit gets hotter,
Yeah.
and it swells up. So line boring is not good at all.
Okay.
Before we had line honing, line boring was the best you had.
Yeah.
But you line boring, the tool got hot, and then it would go. The next one's hotter, and the third one, the bit could be really hot and bore. But I don't think so.
Okay.
If he's talking today's in the last 40 years,
Yeah.
usually that's not the case.
Not likely. Okay. Well, Andy, I hope that helps you.
So yeah, I hope so. And just try another bearing in there and try to figure out what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
And if your bearing's a little loose, you might just take your hands and spring it out a little bit. That don't hurt anything
Okay.
because it's no more than was sprung in.
Right.
You might do some measuring with the mic and put it in there and check it with plastic gauge when you get done, and you'll be all right.
Yeah. Now, if it's a little bit loose, I guess he's talking about on the block. So it would
On
fit
the block.
crank. Maybe I don't know if you tested on the crank also to see.
Well, it's hard to test on the blank crank because you can put the crank in there and torque it down.
Yeah. Right. Right.
The caps and
Okay.
to find out, and then that's your plastic gauge comes in.
Right.
Find exactly where you're at.
Sure. Okay.
So they'll do your homework a little bit. You'll be fine.
Okay.
All right,
He's
good.
very
Thanks.
optimistic, Andy.
Yeah, good question.
Okay, good. Kind of similar in a way. Daryl Hudson, again, Daryl, thank you for all your questions. He's a good guy here. He's a good part of the show. He says, Barry and Ed, what happens to bores when an engine is stroked? Does stroking an engine put more wear on the sides of the bore in line with the stroke?
Sure,
Okay,
sure.
and that's okay.
And that's sometimes the longer the stroke, of course it does. It wears the cylinder up and down. And that's where you'd really like to put a longer connecting rod in.
Okay,
That's the important thing on a and move the wrist pin up the top of the piston if you can do that. Buy some good pistons and put a longer rod in a stroked motor.
okay.
That's all good. So just like if he's talking about the bore and the piston cocking sideways in that thing, and anytime so really you'd like to make a longer rod. If you had a longer rod, let's say the rod was 3 feet long,
Okay.
The piston would just go straight up and down.
Yeah, I wouldn't have any lateral.
No lateral at all.
Yeah.
So that's all good.
I guess the wear...
It looks like he's going to stroke the motor for some kind of racing purpose other than OEM. So you're going to spend some money. You might as well spend in a good place.
Okay, good. All right, well, the next one's from Paul. It says, 2-bolt main with 4-bolt splayed main caps is better in my experience than a stock 4-bolt block. Is there any difference in your experience, Ed?
Well, of course, the splayed caps are always better.
Okay,
Pulls them down and you got a lot more strength.
okay.
Yeah.
So you agree with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, he says he thinks Richard Dickey Stearns of El Paso tried to corner the market on Corvette 327 blocks. I don't know what that's
I don't
about.
know what he wants to do. Yeah.
Okay.
Good for him.
All right, very good. Do you have trouble finding engine block? Like you guys are engine rebuilders.
We have quite a few motors, and we have so many motors and we buy motors from the people we have about 3 vendors
Okay,
that come in here all the time. We don't go to the junkyard to look for motors. We don't have time.
right.
I don't know when the last time I was at a junkyard.
Okay,
And so we have these computer junkyards here in town,
yeah,
a couple of big ones that owns, where they put a whole car out on a platform,
yeah.
and the computer tears the thing apart all by itself.
A robot kind of a
Robots, huge robots, and they take the whole car apart. So we'll get that motor once in a while if it's not broken.
thing? Yeah,
Sometimes they break the transmission right off and break the transmission. They don't care. The robot does.
Yeah.
But we buy a lot of motors from these 3 or 4 vendors that come here all the time.
okay,
And we get 327s and all kinds of motors
okay.
out of the backyard someplace or out to people's garages or something.
Sure,
Yeah,
okay.
there's a lot around.
Yes, you're not running short.
We're not running short. No.
Okay, unless it's an all aluminum 350.
Yeah, something. Yeah.
The next one's from Russell. He said, have you ever heard of anyone cooking a new block, like heating it, then measuring the cylinders to make sure they're round? Have you heard of anything like
No.
that? No.
No.
I know that you cook blocks when you're cleaning them.
When we clean them, we burn them
Yeah.
in a gas-powered furnace.
Mm-hmm.
And we fill the whole thing full of parts. And that furnace will take about a 4-foot square area, 4 feet square. And we close the door and we burn them several hours at night.
I see.
It burns all the paint off of them and all the oil and stuff.
Okay.
But we don't do it for any kind of measurement or anything. And
Yeah.
because we're going to machine it anyways.
Right.
I don't really
It doesn't
care
matter if they're round.
if we heat it up somewhere in an oven and try to measure where it heated up and stretches and stuff is not my opinion.
Yeah.
That I would spend time doing that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Fair enough. That answers that question. Next one is from our friend Fraser Gasser. He's asked some great questions along the way. He says, hey, Barry, ask Ed on the 2-bolt main, what about using a girdle on those?
That's fine. I don't know what you're going to do. I don't understand what you're doing, that you would spend money putting on a girdle on a 2-bolt main and not start out with a 4-bolt and put a girdle on a 4-bolt.
Okay.
Unless they don't make a good 4-bolt main block in his particular way. He didn't say anything what it was for.
No, he
He
didn't.
didn't say Chevrolet or Ford or anything.
No.
Sometimes they don't make a 302 Ford 4-bolt. But I
Right.
think they do. I've seen some in Mustangs, special Mustangs with 4-bolt blocks.
Okay.
But maybe a Pontiacs or something that don't have 4-bolt, you put
Yeah.
a girdle on. Yeah.
Okay.
But I would put a girdle on a 4-bolt main too.
Okay. You're a fan of the girdles.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. We use quite a few of them in the shop.
James asks, I'd like to ask Ed if a 318 crank can be put in a 360 block with 30 over main bearings as spacers. So 318 crank.
Dodge.
Yeah, Dodge 318. Put that crank in a 360 block and use spacers.
I don't know. I've never did that.
Never done it.
No. I don't. I've never did it. I've never tried to do it. I don't know the measurements.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't
So,
know.
yeah, without measuring, if you haven't done it, you don't know
No.
the answer. Okay. Well, sorry, James, we don't happen to know that one.
Yeah.
Next one's from Robert. Can you tell me, is there anything different in the component quality of a GMC versus a Chevrolet engine? You noticed anything? Or
I don't think so. Between the GMC and the Chevrolet, I don't think so. Because it comes down the same assembly line.
Mm-hmm.
And how they would separate one motor from the other one and just put a rare casting or a machine motor in a GMC and not in a Chevrolet because they come down the same assembly line.
Right. And are the labelings on the bare short blocks, they
Same.
just say General Motors, don't they? Or
It's the same, yeah.
yeah. Okay. Now, of course, if we go way back into the 50s,
course.
they had that big
Well, they put Pontiac motor in the GMCs.
Right. They had 389
Yeah.
and whatnot. Yeah.
Yeah, all kinds of combinations.
Right.
And they had that diesel motor in there somewhere too.
Yeah.
And put
I don't know.
yeah, we ain't talking about that.
Okay. But anyway, so in any more...
No, I don't think they put a special motor in a GMC and would not put that same casting in a Chevrolet. No,
right.
I don't think so.
You haven't encountered that. Or components, like a piston's different
components,
or anything.
no, same things.
Yeah,
It's just-
okay.
It comes out.
All right, Robert, they've taken a lot of engines apart, so
Yeah.
I trust him on that one. Next question's from Logan. This is back on the engine dyno. We put that 454 on the dyno.
Okay.
And you might enjoy that video if you haven't seen it. His question is, why does the oil pressure go down at that higher RPM? It starts to taper down again.
Oil pump.
Oil pump.
Yeah, it's oil pump. Yeah.
Yeah, so why does the
And
pressure
the oil
drop?
gets thinner
Okay.
and it just can't keep up. But that's fine. Usually, oil pump pressures will go down very little.
Yeah.
It'll go down 5 pounds maybe at maybe 6,000 RPMs.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure. There's a lot of oil, and I think we could overcome that if we wanted to.
Okay.
We're not really bothered. You don't hold it at that many RPMs, just a few seconds.
Right.
Really, a few seconds. But more or less, I think it's because maybe it's running dry. There's so much oil suspended in the engine.
Yeah.
Maybe a couple of quarts in each valve cover at that many RPMs.
Wow.
And the stuff slashing in the end like a wash machine.
Yeah.
All the oil is suspended and not necessarily in the oil pan.
Right.
We know it's not in the oil pan. I don't care how much oil you put in the oil pan, it's not in there.
Right?
Yeah. So I think it's which it's just a few seconds, and it would normally be 60 pounds and maybe go down to 55 or something.
Right.
It don't go to 30 or 20 or anything.
Right.
Or that can't happen.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think, and even on that dyno, I think it was even less than a second or two.
Oh yeah, just
whoop, and you stop.
But it gets right there, then the oil pressure just drops back a little bit, and that's
Yep.
Yeah,
So anyway, that's a good question, Logan. Thank you.
Good question.
Here's another one from Peated. I recognize these names a lot. Thank you, guys. Oil pressure drop because there's air mixed in the oil by the crankshaft at high RPM. So he's talking about that whipping oil. This is a similar question, similar topic.
Yeah, he's getting in the same area.
Yeah. He said Engine Masters, that's a pretty famous YouTube channel.
Yeah, I like them guys.
Yeah, they're good. They found that lowering the oil level solved a lot of it. The kick-out oil pan, which won't fit in most OE chassis, and dry sump setups are best. Well, we like dry sumps.
That. Yeah.
Okay, Wayne says, at what speed does the crankshaft with a heavy end of the crank counterweight start whipping on the ends or the middle that rips the main webs out of the block? But that's pretty violent. So he's asking about, crankshaft speed pulling the engine apart, I guess. Have you encountered that very much?
I goes back into harmonics again.
Okay.
He's got a crankshaft he shouldn't have in there. He needs to have a billet crank or something to take that. A good crank that won't do that.
Okay.
I don't know. A cast crank, you can't run a cast crank. I'm not necessarily correcting him, saying that, accusing him of a cast crank and trying to run RPMs. No, I'm not. I'm thinking, but even though a steel crank, with that time he's running that many RPMs and stuff, he needs some counterweights on it.
Okay.
He needs a crankshaft that costs him about $5,000.
Okay.
Anything less than that's going to do that.
I see.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, that makes the difference.
Just got to spend some more money.
Okay. Sorry, Wayne.
Come
no
apart.
cheap way out of
He's
that.
talking a $7,500, $8,000
Okay.
before it starts doing that.
I see.
Yeah.
And yeah, we have to assume that it's at least been balanced properly.
The crankshaft we have in our car, the junior fuel car, that runs 10.5 RPMs, and I don't even know what that crank costs. I think it's a Kelly's crank. I think, as far as I know, but I don't know what it costs. Lots of money.
Yeah. All right. The next question's from Henry, and he says, "Please ask Ed to explain the difference between the Chevy 383 and the Chevy 406. And by the way, I can tell you those are not factory numbers."
Yeah, not 406. Oh, 406 is a 400, maybe 30 over.
Okay.
Yeah, and the 383 is a Chevy 350 with a stroker crank in it.
Okay.
Longer stroker, so it's two different combinations.
So what would the characteristics, how would you compare just how the engine...
406 is a bigger bore.
Okay.
And heavier pistons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be one combination of 406s would be I don't know if he's talking oval track or something. That would be a long track. Maybe a half-mile track or something like that. Like that. And a 3/8 track, the 406 is the wrong motor. 383 or 377.
Okay.
Yeah, small.
So would you say...
Stroke.
So the 406 would be a torquier, more...
Yes.
Okay.
More than RPMs and muscle.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, you got two combinations there, and you should decide what you want to do with it.
Okay.
I think we don't use 406s very often.
Okay. Yeah,
We really don't.
I don't hear you talking about them very much.
Yeah, we don't.
Okay. Well, thank you, Henry. The next question is from Clean Read. He says, "What cam lube do you guys like to use when you assemble the engines? Do you have a brand you like?"
Not really. We argue about that every day.
Only every day.
Only every day, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm not sure. I have some cam lube I put on it. I think it comes from comp cams.
Yep.
I like the little tube lubes there.
Okay.
And then after that, when you choose your lube, whatever you want to do, then the fight's on.
Fight is on.
And there's so many questions about that, and I talk to people continually in the last 10 years, And I talked to a cam grinder just yesterday. He's ground our camshaft. We ground our camshafts for the last 40 years.
Okay.
And he has some different thoughts about it too.
Okay.
And just different people.
This isn't anything related to that whole thing about greasing a banana peel, is it?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. It's just like some of the people say, and we say, I can go over it again. I can spend hours on this thing because the cam runs on a thing and the lifter runs over to one side. It don't run the center. It runs over the center. So every time the lobe goes around, it has to spin the lifter.
Yes.
If that lifter does not spin, it'll wear out in 5 seconds.
So
And
if
the only time that lifter was going to wear out is metal to metal.
Okay.
It's the only time it's going to wear is metal to metal.
Yeah.
If you can keep a lube in there and keep that lifter to spin, the one guy even said, so he sandpapers the bottom of the lifter to get it to grip on that cam so it does spin.
Okay.
Sometimes a good engine run, the push rod will be rotating.
Okay, yeah.
Absolutely will.
Okay.
And that cam will probably last 200,000 miles.
Okay.
So then anyways, not necessarily can you blame it on the lube. We blame a lot on startup.
Mm-hmm.
We start a lot of motors up over here. Probably sometimes in one day we'll start 2 or 3 different motors.
Yeah.
Take it off the engine stand and start them up. And
Yep.
if we do that, rarely do we have a cam problem.
Okay.
And I don't believe that, I know if you run them real slow, they get hot.
Mm-hmm.
We know that factor, like throwing 2 sticks together.
Right.
And I don't believe in running one, as soon as you fire it up, you run at 2,000 RPMs for 5 minutes.
Right.
I'm not about to do that. Because if you have any other problems with the motor other than that, you got problems.
Yeah.
Even a little oil leak, you want to correct that right away.
Right.
And a little water leak in your system, you want to correct that right away. Shut it off, start it over again.
Yep.
And some of those things. And so
Okay.
some of those things. So the fight's on. But I really don't know. I don't know who to blame it on to. But we have one break-in oil we really love.
Okay. What's that?
I don't remember which one it is right now.
You're
So in
just
the
going to
shop.
make everybody crazy.
And we swear by that.
Okay.
I just can't remember what side.
If I can remember, I'll take a picture of it and
yes,
stick
just
it
take
in
a
here.
picture of it and
Yeah.
put it on a can. But we sell a lot of it, and we recommend that.
Okay.
Nobody, our company pays me a dime,
Right.
so I can. It's my opinion.
You can hate all of them
I
if
can
you
hate
want.
all of them.
Your
What I
opinion,
know about it,
right? Yeah, it's what you
my
found.
experience,
Experience.
and not my knowledge of oil or anything. We'll leave that up to the
Yeah.
oil guy.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
well, clean.
Does that answer your questions? But
You opened a real good
yeah, you open up.
topic there.
Yeah.
All right. Gooberstein says, since C4s were used behind the smaller engines, they have a higher ratio first gear than the C6s. That's why racers like the C4 better. Not sure if any Ford 2-speed was good for racing. And I've heard C6 and Chrysler 727s take away even more power than the turbo hydro 400s. That's all
They do.
Okay.
They do, yeah. And most of those gear ratios are the same: 145, 245, 145, 1-to-1.
Okay.
Those 3 major 3-speed transmissions are all the same gear ratio within 1 or 2 numbers.
Okay. So it's similar
They're
enough.
all the same, yeah.
that You're not changing things out just for the ratios like
Different
that.
enough for a ratio. No.
Okay.
Not at all.
But that's interesting. I hadn't heard you say that the C6 and the Chrysler TorqueFlite were to use more power.
They do. Yes, they do more power.
Is that because of the torque converter or
I
what?
think it's the gear ratio in the back of the planetaries.
Oh.
The
Okay.
planetaries in the back in first gear only. And they're bigger drums too, bigger diameter.
Okay.
Anytime you put bigger stuff, it takes more horsepower to pull.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, thank you for that question. Next one, Raphael says, you have to be very careful with cross main caps. All the torque specs have to be set properly before checking the block. That's what he's saying. Torquing the main caps will move the geometry around. Do you know what he's talking about? Because I don't. I don't build engines.
Well, most main caps supposed to be sloppy on the bolts.
Okay.
They have to be. No bolt is machined perfectly to fit the main cap. So therefore, if you put the bolts in, tighten them down, the main cap still slops on the bolts. The diameter of the bolt in the main cap. So we're going back to the anchors on the main caps, where they anchor in the bolts, those two ends in the block.
Mm-hmm.
Get those anchored right, and they shouldn't move very little. Those things really have to be tight, because the bolts do not tighten. The bolts never tighten a main cap to the same angle, right?
Okay.
They'll be off.
Okay, sounds like you're agreeing with him from what I can understand.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Here we go. I'd like to know what the difference you get in horsepower or torque from a manual transmission compared to a automatic transmission. Is one always faster than the other?
Manual is always faster.
Okay. And why is that?
Whatever. When the automatic transmission, one way or the other, the torque lever always slips. Some of the cars are 130 mile an hour drag car is slipping maybe 3 or 4 miles an hour.
But what about the lock-up torque converter? How's it slipping?
You don't race a lock-up torque converter.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go.
That won't last at all.
Okay. Good.
Yeah, you can't do that. So then the manual shift, whatever it might be, is solid gears. They can't slip.
Okay.
And a gear box, like a 5-speed or 6-speed or whatever it happens to be,
Yep.
is just free to turn. There's no inertia. It takes very little horsepower to turn a 5-speed transmission. Whatever gear you have in it, because that's the way it's designed.
Okay. Now, and
So it's always more horsepower and quick rev. It's more fun to drive a 5-speed
yeah,
than it is an automatic by a long ways. Yeah.
sure. Now, and I guess when you talk about, okay, and you answered the question about torque or horsepower. I guess some people, if you look at it the other way, not top speed or maximum speed,
Okay.
but if you're not very good at shifting, maybe the guy with the automatic's going to be faster than you.
Possibly, sure, yeah.
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 So, okay.
Just like the Pro Gas cars, I think they shift those without a clutch. You see those, you know, they run 200 miles an hour.
Yeah.
210 now, 215 maybe. And they're all manual shift transmissions.
Wow. Yeah.
And they 5 speeds, like first, second, third, fourth, as fast as you can shift them.
Yeah.
A few
Interesting.
yeah. It's
Okay.
common sense, yeah.
Cool. All right. Next one's from Dan. And Dan says, my Oldsmobile 330 Rocket. There, that goes back.
Okay, 1957, 55?
I don't
No,
even,
60.
Is it 60 maybe?
60.
They had what,
60, 66, 67.
They had some wild models like Dynamic 88 or whatever.
Yes, some of those, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry, I don't know.
330, okay.
Don't know them all
350, okay.
exact, but we got the idea. When he starts the engine, it runs straight up to 50 psi oil pressure. Then it goes to 25 or 30 once it's hot. And it goes down to 0 idling at the light. It's been doing this for 20 years. I have a Chevy small block 406 which carries 60 psi. Red line will rev up to 100 almost and idles at 60 psi, which is what I prefer. Now, one's a really crazy fast engine and one's an old stock engine, obviously.
Well, the 350 Oldsmobile, you're back into that Oldsmobile oiling.
Yeah, the 330, yeah.
Yeah, we still have trouble with the oiling, where it oils the preference in the block, where it oils the lifters and stuff, and you get a little wear, and it will last forever.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's not running at very many RPMs. He's going to get the mail,
Yeah,
and it'll last maybe another 40 years
right.
with that same oil pressure.
Right.
It just takes a little bit of oil to keep that Oldsmobile lubricated.
Okay.
So, but don't be running it very hard.
No, well, obviously he's babying it because if
Yeah.
it's been doing the same thing for 20 years.
Yeah, right, yeah. And, well, he could tighten it up.
Okay, what would he do? What
Rebuild the whole motor. And the cam bearings, let's say the cam bearings are on the top. Got a big load on the cam bearings. The lifters weigh a lot. The valve springs. And the cam rotates. And it just keeps going down in the block, forcing it all down. And the more you force it down, there's gaps on top of the cam and the bearings.
Right.
Not necessarily as a bearing, but that gap gets bigger and bigger, and there goes all the oil pressure. And that Oldsmobile motor has a preference of oiling the lifters first.
Well,
We talked about that before.
right.
So it's pumping a lot of oil up on that cam bearings.
Okay.
That normal motors don't do that.
Okay.
But it's going to last. If you don't like it, you have to take and rebuild the cam bearings and press those plugs in it, maybe, and tune up that oil pressure galleys. I don't know what to tell you. There's no fix for it besides tear the whole motor apart and rebuild it.
Could you leave the bottom end altogether?
I wouldn't do that. No, not at all.
Okay. I'm
No,
just
no.
asking
No, you can't do
questions people ask.
that. Oh, you do it all or none.
Okay.
Yeah.
Joseph is asking, Ed must have raced against some of the old school guys like Cheesbourg Carl. Do you know who Cheesbourg Carl?
Carl Cheesbourg?
Yeah.
From Tucson?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, now we're talking.
Yeah, we got to get the name straight now.
I got it right now. Here, yeah.
Yeah, Carl Cheesbourg.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So yeah, he said, what
He was
about Ray?
rough.
He says, what about Ray Cates and Herb Lang from Tucson? Do you know those guys?
Herb what?
Herb Lang.
I don't remember that name, but
But anyway, he says the Tucson at the 11-mile corner and Manzanita, etc. Did you guys ever run at Corona Speedway back in the dirt days?
I raced Corona Speedway, yeah.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, there you go. See?
Yeah. Yeah, if they were there, not necessarily we know everybody that was in the pits.
Right.
I would say if we were racing there, there's a good chance they might come talk to us.
Yeah.
And sometimes with the racetrack, maybe they wouldn't come talk to us.
Depending on what's going on that day,
Yeah,
right?
what happened that day, who's winning the race,
Yeah.
who they would come talk to, or who we knew who was winning the race, or who our competitors were.
Right. Right.
And we would like to know who our competitors were, especially Cheesbourg.
Okay.
He was a little rough.
Okay.
We'd like to take advantage of him sometimes.
Now you're going to have to explain what does that
We're
mean.
not going to do that. I don't think I don't think he exists anymore. I don't know, sure.
Okay, but you remember him anyway.
Yeah, of
obviously.
course we did. Yeah.
Okay, very good.
It's just fun things.
Yeah,
That's
that
a long
is
time ago. That was way back in the 70s,
okay.
50 years ago.
Yeah. Okay, very
I can't
good.
remember too much after 50 years.
You know, a lot of people do give you a lot of credit for remembering so much. Someone called you a walking encyclopedia the other day,
Yeah.
and I'm very thankful you have such a sharp memory. So if you get one thing wrong here or there, we're going to give you a lot of slack.
Yeah, okay, good.
I think you deserve that.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, thank you guys again for watching another episode. Thank you again, Ed.
Okay, good.
And
Thank you.
we'll keep doing them. These are fun. We'll do another
okay,
one.
We'll keep going. We'll
We'll
keep going forever.
Okay. Why not?
Okay.
All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for being a part of BarryTsGarage. And if you want some Ed Smith memorabilia, some hats and shirts and all, it's just edsmithspeed.shop. Head over there and have a look.